Scale is just such an interesting question because it's really related to people's perspectives and their goals depending on where they sit within the value chain. And it varies so much, of course. The perspective of a lead roaster versus a smallholder farmer are just completely different, and they have completely different objectives. So maybe I can talk through how scale and objectives are interrelated with these different actors, and then give some examples from our work and on how that all fits in. So first, maybe starting at the coffee industry level to just sort of set the stage. One of the things that really excites me and we find so cool about the coffee industry is it's got so much potential to be a natural climate solution. There's about 10,000 hectares throughout the world that are producing coffee, and about half of them are covered in shade with a lot of trees sequestering carbon, and the other half are more or less full sun. And demand for coffee is expected to triple over the next while. So that's going to be a huge push for expanding the amount of land under coffee cultivation. And so if that's done poorly, it's going to lead to a lot of CO2 emissions, where if it's done really well, it can be a really powerful tool in helping to mitigate climate change. So it's believed that the coffee sector as a whole could help mitigate 1 to 3 gigatons of carbon. That's 1,000 million tons of carbon. So just like this huge amount. And that comes from preventing the expansion of new coffee lands into deforesting existing forests, protecting the forests on existing coffee lands, and restoring and increasing shade cover and the use of trees within coffee landscapes in areas that are full sun. And so that just brings a lot of perspective, right, of what's possible, and then talk about how that sort of industry level scale work makes its way down the value chain. So like at the lead brand level, there's this real demand these days to trying to reduce their carbon footprints and have a positive impact on the environment. And so from the lead brand, like roaster perspective, scale really is about how can we affect or reduce our carbon footprint or increase the amount of carbon within our supply chain at the supply chain level. And lead brands are often sourcing from at least 10 different origins, 10 different countries. So they're covering so much variability. And so for them, what we hear from the industry is really this desire to aggregate up some really lead indicators around climate and impact that are applicable throughout the industry. So things like how much land is covered in forest, how much carbon is in my supply chain, how much carbon can be sequestered by the activities that we may fund. And so it really aggregates that really big level, or how many people, how many beneficiaries are we impacting through the activities that we do. But then you go down and they're sourcing coffee from like coffee cooperatives or exporters. And for them, the topic becomes a little bit different. In many cases, they're thinking about, like, they're in a really competitive environment. They're thinking, how can I better sell my coffee, right? How can I create better business relationships with the people I'm working with? And so from there, their perspective is, okay, well, if there's going to be financial incentives to be protecting forests or increasing forest cover, yeah, I want part of that. But I need to do it in a way that's like really not complicated, really not costly or complicated to my people, in a way that I'm going to provide it to my buyers, and they're going to trust the information we're giving them. And so their concerns are really like, okay, well, market access, yeah, but make this easy for me. And then at the farmer level, then it's like you're down to like the small farm. They're not thinking multiple areas of land. They're thinking about like resilience, just making the coffee industry work for them. And especially in an environment with such low prices, that really comes down to like, I need the economics to be better for me. And so when in our work in the industry, we really have to recognize those different scales and those completely different objectives. And so what we're trying to do is catalyze investment into the sector to make coffee a natural climate solution. And so we've developed this digital platform that brings together both brands who are trying to meet their climate commitments by financing climate smart activities within their value chain. And then the producers on the producer side who are looking for ways to improve market access. And so bring the two actors together and getting lead brands to make investments within that supply chain. But the platforms are designed right from the beginning for very different purposes. While they come together around climate, the purpose of the platform is very different on the ground as it is for the buyer. So on the ground, in many ways, it's a management tool to help identify and facilitate areas where interventions can take place. So we'll combine satellite imagery, ground data, triangulate a bunch of information, identify areas with high possibilities for increasing forest cover. And then when people are increasing forest cover, we want to measure that really in a really rigorous, consistent way so that these indicators around climate and carbon can be aggregated up the supply chain at the buyer perspective.